This conference will now be recorded.
You can go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. So welcome everybody to our planning meeting today concerning proposed zoning bylaw amendments pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act. Today we have 5 files in front of us: C14-20 Edwin Martin, C18-21 Margaret Barlari, C21-21 Timothy and Anita Shantz, C22-21 Sharon and Timothy Roberts, and finally C24-21 Flato Dundalk Meadows. Any person or public body is entitled to attend this public meeting and make written or oral submissions in support of or in opposition to any of the proposed zoning bylaw amendments. Written comments should be submitted to the clerk, Lindsay Green. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Southgate before the zoning bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of Council of the Township of Southgate to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and in addition, they may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So, the first file we're going to deal with today is C14-20 Edwin Martin, Concession 2, Part Lot 16, RP 111512, Parts 8-12 in the geographic township of Proton. The purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application is to allow for an agricultural related use being a small-scale dry industrial use shop. The owners wish to add the shop to the list of permitted uses for the agricultural exception zone A1-476. The shop, including office and power room, is proposed to be up to 750 square meters with outside storage of approximately 500 square meters. The effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment would be to add the industrial use to the agricultural exception zone A1-476. Any environmental protection zone boundary may be adjusted based on Conservation Authority comments. May I please have confirmation from the clerk that proper notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act?
Yes, Chair Milne, proper notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act. The sign was posted and the notice was sent.
Excellent. Thank you, Lindsay. And now I'll ask our planner, Clint Stredwick, to review correspondence received from commenting agencies. Good afternoon, Clint. I hope he's on the line, is he? I don't see him. There he is. There he is. I knew he wouldn't be far away. Welcome, Clint.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Milne, and I'll get to the comments here. Just give me a second. So the first comments we have are from the Public Works Department, and they indicate that a commercial entrance has been installed. It's a rural gravel road, and that a safe access can be provided. Okay. The Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority. SVA staff provided comments to the township dated March 29th, 2021 for the related application C15-20 and November 16th for 2020 for the related application B7-20, all regarding the subject property. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment is generally acceptable to the SPCA staff. We also have comments from the County of Grey. The County of Grey indicates county staff would recommend that a revised site plan be submitted to show a proposed rezoning area with a maximum area of 8,000 meters squared. Provided a revised site plan is submitted and that positive comments are received from the Conservation Authority, county staff have no further concerns on the subject application. And that's all of the comments that I have received.
Okay, thank you. Any correspondence from the public?
None received.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions from or discussion from council at this time? Okay, not seeing any. I'll now ask if the applicant or agent is present. Please identify yourself by stating your name for the record. And would you like to make any representation on your application? Okay, not hearing any. Is there anyone, sorry, excuse me. Is there anyone present who would like to make a submission in support of this application? And please note, you'll be required to state your full name and address for the clerk, and your comments will be included in the minutes and will form part of the township record. So, as I say, is there anyone here that'd like to make a submission in support of the application? No? Is there anyone here present who would like to make a submission in opposition to this application?
Not right now.
Okay. Are there any questions or further discussion from members of council? Barb.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Clinton, without comments from the fire and the building department yet, and I note that the county comments must have just come in. What about, would there be a requirement for a water reservoir for fire suppression?
That usually that doesn't come into it necessarily. What happens is, depending on the size of the shop, we put that in as a condition of site plan approval, that if it's required by the building code, then they're required to provide that for fire suppression. If it's not required, then we wouldn't obviously need to enforce that bit of the site plan control application. I didn't hear what you said there.
I can't hear you,
Sorry,
Barb.
I lost my
Oh, there you go.
lost my phone connection. I didn't hear your response, Clinton. Sorry about that.
Okay. I was just saying that we would normally put that condition in the site plan control agreement.
Ah, okay. That's where that comes in. Okay. Thank you.
No worries. Any other questions or discussion from members of council? Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Clinton, I'm looking at the map and there is that hydro easement. That's not going to be a problem, I would assume, for these people who want to put it up. Like, what is their minimum standard of staying away from their lines? Whether it be farming operation or dry business like this, is there setbacks there?
There are no setbacks per se from the hydro easement. It's just if there's an issue, like you're obviously to be aware, they're kind of hard to miss, right? So,
well, yeah, but
you
no,
try
I'm thinking more.
You try and
Sorry,
stay out
go
of
ahead.
you try and stay out of that easement area, but there's no setback from it.
Okay, well, I'm just thinking, you know, these areas have that magnetic static electricity. I don't know if that would affect a shop so close by if they're using computer or all that kind of stuff. That might be I don't know, maybe I'm far reaching here, but
I
anyway.
see our chief building official has joined us. Perhaps Bev has something to add here.
Yeah, just a question.
Thank you, Mr. Milne. I will just add that there are requirements of setback from hydro lines depending on the amount of voltage, the size of the voltage running through the wires, and that is in the Building Code Act. And that will be watched and looked at the time of a building permit application.
There you go.
Thank you, Bev.
Okay, great. I'm glad. Yeah, thank you, Bev. I'm glad I asked that then. That's all I have, Clinton. Thank you.
Okay, Jim. You're muted, Mr. Frew.
That would
There you
be for
go.
residential rather than farming operations.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Let me try again. These hydro towers, there are two running through my place, and there are no restrictions as to how close you can get to the towers for farming operations. But I do believe there's a restriction for homes that are occupied. They have to stay a given distance away.
Go ahead, Bev.
For farming operations, I do not believe there's any restriction, but there are restrictions to build structures within a certain distance. And that is to allow Ontario Hydro, or Hydro One, I should say, to come in and do repairs to the lines, as well as probably some magnetic voltage straying off of it to make sure people are more comfortable.
Very good. Thanks, Bev. You're showing your age when you say Ontario Hydro.
It's hard to get past the past, you know.
I know. I hear you. I hear you. Okay. Any further discussion or questions regarding this file? Okay. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next one, which is C18-21, Margaret Barlari. And I apologize if I didn't say that correctly, but concession 15, part lot 23, geographic township of Egremont. The purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to consider a temporary zoning bylaw amendment application for a period of up to 20 years to recognize the existing residence as a garden suite and allow for the building of a new residence on the same lot and occupied on a year-round basis. The effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment would be to change the zoning symbol on a portion of the property from agricultural A1 to agricultural exception A1-XXX to allow for a garden suite on the property. May I please have confirmation from the clerk that proper notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act?
Yes, Chairman, proper notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act.
Thank you very much. Now I'll ask Clint, our planner, to review any correspondence received from the commenting agencies.
Thank you, Chair Milne. The first comment I have is from the Public Works Manager, who indicates safe access can be provided. It's a county road jurisdiction, and therefore any entrance requirements would be through the County of Grey. Moving along here. The next comments are from the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment application is generally acceptable to the SVCA staff. I imagine it still requires a permit from them. Oh, here we go. It says, consistency with section 2.1 natural heritage policies of the PPS has been demonstrated with the exception of the endangered species and threatened species policies, which the applicant or owner must address with the MECP. So that's their standard comment for that. And then the last comments we have here are from the County of Grey. The county recommends that MDS be applied to the proposed dwelling. It's noted that in 2015 mapping imagery does not indicate any barns in the immediate vicinity, but there may be some closer now. Provided MDS can be met and the SVCA is generally satisfied with the proposed building location of the new primary dwelling, the county has no further concerns. The county would generally encourage member municipalities to consider permitting additional residential units as permitted dwellings through updates to official plan and zoning standards. And that's the gist of their comments. And that's all of the agency comments received. Can't hear you.
You're muted, Mr. Chair.
Sorry about that. I apologize. Was there any comments from the public? No?
Now you're muted, Clint. I don't believe there was any from the public received.
Okay, we're just doing tag here. Very good.
Yeah.
And now I'll ask if the applicant or agent is present. Please identify yourself by stating your name for the record, and would you like to make any representation on your application? I see Mr. Barlari. Is that how you say your name, sir? Barlari?
Yes, yes, it is.
Very good. Okay, if you'd like to make a comment, by all means, go ahead.
Yes, my name is Luis Barlari, and I'm presently, I'm the owner of the property together with my wife. We are presently living at this residence that is there. And we are presently living kind of temporary basis. You know, we are planning to construct a new property according to the new amendments for the county. So I'm here just to see this through, you know, and hopefully everything goes okay. We are just waiting on a decision to start construction.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So I'll now ask if there's anyone present who'd like to make a submission in support of this application. Not seeing any. Is there anyone present who'd like to make a submission in opposition to this application? Not seeing any. Is there any further questions or discussion from council? Not hearing any. Thank you very much. That completes that file for today. Thank you, Mr. Barlari, for attending. Oh, wait, Martin, go ahead.
Yeah, I owe $20 to the jar. I was muted. So I just have one question to Clinton, I guess. It says on page 34, item 35, the father attempted to sever. They don't have to do any severances with this, do they? They can build as is, and that's why they're going for the smaller 700 square foot as a granny unit, right? Because they can start right away with this policy.
Okay, so they're not proposing a severance.
No.
The reason why they're going ahead with this policy, is because you can't have two houses on one lot. Okay.
Yeah.
The only exception to that is if you have a garden suite in the rural area, or you have an accessory dwelling, which is essentially an attachment, a secondary apartment on an existing dwelling. So to have two separate houses on their own isn't permitted under the policy, but having a garden suite with a time limit on it is.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good reason. I just wanted to confirm that. And looking at that, I'm assuming it looks like a European 7. So, Mr. Barlari, that is a 700 square foot cottage?
Yes, it is. It's about 700 square feet cottage.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Martin.
Yep, no worries.
Okay. Any further questions or concerns from council? Okay, that completes that file. Again, thank you, Mr. Barlari, for attending, and the process continues. So the next file is C21-21, Timothy and Anita Shantz, concession 16, part lot 8, concession 17, lots 8 and 9, and RP 16R11093, part 1, geographic township of Egremont. The purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application is to consider an amendment allowing a portion of the property to be used for a parochial school. The effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment would be to change the zoning symbol on a portion of the property from agricultural E1A1, to community facility CF to allow for a parochial school to be permitted on the property. So, Madam Clerk, may I please have confirmation that proper notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act?
Yes, Chair Milne, proper notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act.
Most excellent. Thank you very much. I'll now ask our planner, Clint Stredwick, to review correspondence received from commenting agencies. Clinton.
Thank you, Chair Milne. The first comments we have are from the County of Grey, and county indicates from a general planning perspective, given that many students will likely be traveling to school by foot or bicycle, it is recommended that Southgate seek to consider any necessary upgrades to Southgate Road 22 to ensure road shoulder access is available to increase pedestrian safety from passing road traffic. And provided that MDS can be achieved, safe access can be provided to the proposed school building, and the SVCA is supportive of the proposed building envelope, the county have no further comments on the proposal. The Public Works Department indicate that a safe access can be provided. It's a rural gravel road standard. A new entrance will be required. Currently, there's no 911 sign for the civic address. It says solar school zone flashing set of lights is recommended due to the 80 km/h speed zone in midsection of this block with hills to traffic calm during school travel times and school zone signage requirements. So those are things that the Public Works is recommending. And then we have the Conservation Authority, and the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is generally acceptable to the SVCA staff. And they say generally because of the endangered and threatened species policy, which the applicant must address to the MECP. And that is all of the comments I have.
Thank you, sir. Is there any comments received from the public?
None received.
Thank you. I'll now ask if the applicant or agent is present. Please identify yourself by stating your name for the record, and if you would like, you can make representation on the application.
Yes, Elvin Martin here.
Good afternoon, sir. Go ahead.
Yes, it's Elvin Martin here. I really don't have any comments to make, but I am the applicant for the project.
Very good. If there's any questions arising to you, I'll let you know.
Thank you.
So if there's anyone present who would like to make a submission in support of this application, please speak now. And if there's anyone present who would like to make a submission in opposition to this application, please speak now. Okay. Are there any questions or further discussion from members of council? Barb?
I thank you, Chair Milne, and through you to Clinton. I was glad to see that the recommendation from the Public Works is that a speed reduction in the area through the use of the solar flashing signs be recommended. Would that be at the applicant's expense? That wouldn't be a taxpayer's expense?
That would be my understanding is yes. I would double check that with Public Works, but that's my understanding, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussion from council members? Martin.
Yeah, just a comment. This is basically a safety issue, so I've got no problem with it. You know, I drive these roads, and that one line where it said in the application to keep the Beaver Valley School from overfilling, in 5 years' time, there's going to be a lot more kids on their bikes on these roads. So we need schools, not just clustered here and there. We need more schools for these horse and buggy because it can be quite hairy driving sometimes when you see a line of kids riding their bikes. So I think it's good. I think it's all right.
Okay,
so
thank you.
Get the process going.
Yep. Any further questions or discussion from council? Not hearing any. Thank you very much. That finishes that file. Thank you much for attending, Mr. Shantz. The next file now is C22-21, Sharon and Timothy Roberts, Concession 1, EPT, Division 3, Lot 3, Geographic Township of Southgate. The purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application is to implement 3 new lots by zoning them as residential type 5 and amending the zoning standards for the retained lot to recognize the reduced lot area. The effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment would be to change the zoning symbol on the property for the severed parcels from restricted agricultural, A2, to residential type 5, R5. The retained parcel will be rezoned from restricted agricultural A2 to restricted agricultural exception A2-XXX to recognize the reduced lot area. The environmental protection zone boundary may be adjusted based on Conservation Authority comments. Madam Clerk, can I have confirmation that that proper notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act?
Yes, Chair Milne, proper notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act.
Thank you very much. And once again, I will ask our planner, Clint Stredwick, to review any comments from commenting agencies.
Thank you, Chair Milne. For any that were in attendance this morning, this will be a bit of a repeat for the Committee of Adjustment, but first comments we have are from the County of Grey. And the county indicate that overall the county would recommend that a detailed comments be received from the SVCA and that a decision be deferred until such time that environmental impact study be completed. The Public Works Department indicate that it's a rural asphalt standard. Lot entrances will have to be cut into the hill and may require more sloping or retainment of banks. And the section of Wilder Lake Road is a 50 km/h speed zone. The SVCA indicate that the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and consent applications are acceptable to the SVCA. And that's all of the agency comments that we have. We do have members of the public that have commented on this application.
So if you'd like to go through the comments received from the public, please.
Okay, so the first one is from James Martin. He actually provided in two separate emails with comments. The first comments are in regard to the existing topography of the proposed lots, and more specifically with regard to the significant elevation of the existing lots. And they would expect that these elevations would need to be reduced for driveways and foundations, etc. These changes could then affect the water flow and possibly contribute to water blockages or ponding on other properties. So they would hope that the project would include an engineered grading and drainage plan to ensure proper drainage. He also has a concern with sight lines, particularly because the road has a slight dogleg in it where these lots are proposed, and the entrances to these properties should be reviewed carefully to, I guess, prevent future accidents. And there's also a concern with respect to the retained parcel and whether or not there is the potential for any further development on there. It's his opinion that he would prefer it remain as undeveloped, given that they're getting these 3 lots here now. There's some suspicion among the public that maybe they're trying to get around not doing a plan of subdivision by only doing 3 lots on such a large parcel. However, that's his concern. So that's Mr. James Martin. Next, we have Ali Livingston. I believe she was on the line here, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, she is.
Okay. The comments we've received in that respect, they're questions as much as anything about the effects on the water table and concerns about drainage. That's a really big concern because these lots are quite a bit higher than her lot is, and she doesn't want, rightly so, she doesn't want drainage to come down on her property and affect her peace and enjoyment of her property. She also noted that there's a bunch of road flagging and stuff on the edge of the road. The applicant who wasn't able to be here was emailed us yesterday and indicated that the flags were not put there by them, and that they believed that the flags were put there by the fiber network that's being installed in the area. So that's that was to address that specific comment. And that's the comments I have from Ms. Livingston. And then we also have one more comment from John Woon, who has purchased a neighboring property across the road, and they're skeptical of, again, what's going to happen with the retained parcel, and if they're only applying for 3 lots, or should this be a plan of subdivision for the retained parcel, and they're concerned about that. So they want to know whether or not this is going to be developed, and they're going to have a subdivision next to them so that they can be informed as to whether or not they're going to put more investment in their property or move on. So that's the nature of their concerns. And that's all of the comments I have, I believe, from the public, unless there's others. Lindsay?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you, Clint. Any questions or discussion from council at this time? Martin.
Thank you, Brian. Clinton, you mentioned this morning, there is a definite, if it's higher up, those 3 lots are higher up, there is definitely an ingress and egress problem with cars coming out. But with that being said, on the south side, looking at the map, there's a lot of driveways, and it is a 50 zone. So depending on how those driveways are made, that really, and with some of the driveways I've seen, they're usually pretty good at how they grade them. This question about the other retained parcel, you said you can't stop people from developing that rest, but the way to do it would be put some, they'd have to go through that subdivision plan to make it more, it's harder to get development in that kind of place because a subdivision plan is more intense with the EAs and grading and what have you. And so could you explain that again, what you meant by that? I kind of wrote it down, but.
Okay. Through the chair. What I meant by that is when we bring forward the zoning, the retained parcel is going to be rezoned with an exception. And if the concern is that it's just somebody's gonna come back and apply for 3 more lots and then 3 more lots, and maybe I'm not here to know that, and so somebody else is reviewing it, and therefore they apply and get away with having 3 more lots, etc., so that you create this strip development along the road. My suggestion was that we could put in the zoning as part of the exception that new lot creation will only be considered by plan of subdivision for that parcel. And then that way it ensures that it's developed a little more comprehensively for the retained portion, because it is a bit complex. there's lots of EP but there is certainly lots of area there. It's 23 odd acres, I believe it is. So it's quite a large piece. So.
Okay, thank you, Clinton.
Okay.
Anything,
thank you, Clinton.
anything more, Martin? Okay. Any further questions from council? Discussion? Okay, not hearing any. I'll ask if there's anyone present, or sorry, I'll ask if the applicant or agent is present. Please identify yourself by stating your name for the record. And would you like to make any representation on your application? Not hearing anything. I'll ask if there's anyone present who would like to make a submission in support of this application. No. And if there's anyone present who would like to make a submission in opposition to this application. Okay, are there any further questions or discussion from council?
I have a question. May I speak? It's Allie
Okay.
Livingston. Hi.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Allie.
Hi,
Yep.
guys. So I have a question regarding the actual zoning, what the 5, what it's being changed from agricultural to residential
R5.
5, is it? Yeah. So
Yep, that's right.
what is the specifics about the 5? Like, does that preclude it from further subdivision? Does it, what, is there a 4? Is there a 3? What does that limit it to? Like a single story, 2-story?
Yeah, I'll get Clint to speak to that, but it's the severed parcels that are going to be rezoned to R5 or potentially.
Yes, I understand that. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The
good,
specifics,
good. Okay.
the specifics of what R5 really entails.
Exactly. So I'll get Clint to do that. So Clinton,
Thanks.
please, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. So that's our zone category, if you will. We have residential zones from 1 to 6, with R1 and R2 and even R3 being our urban residential zones. R6 is our sort of rural residential zone, and then our R5 is sort of our rural community zone. And the main differences between them are not so much the permitted uses, in that most of them all permit a single family detached, with the exception of the higher density zones, the R3 and R4. But the main differences are the lot sizes. So in your urban zones, your R1 and your R2, your lot areas are going to be really, really small. So like 450 square meters with a lot frontage of maybe 50 feet or 15 meters. Whereas in an R5 zone, you can see it's actually 2,000 square meters as the minimum lot area, and your minimum lot frontage is quite a bit bigger at 30 meters, and your lot coverage is different. And so that's what the main differences are, is how big or how small the lots are depending on where they are. So in the R6 zone, the minimum lot size is actually 2 acres, I believe it is, because it's further out in the country on private services. This is within the settlement area. So it's a little bit smaller, but it's not an urban settlement area on full municipal services.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I see the square footage for the house here too. So it's minimum, yeah, to a maximum of 2.5 stories. Okay.
Allie, we can send you this piece of the zoning bylaw as well.
That would be
I was
wonderful.
just going to suggest that.
That
yeah,
would
I was
be
just going to
wonderful.
suggest that.
And
Actually,
really,
is this?
It's more of a concern, just because, our family home in Caledon, we had agricultural that was in a in a council meeting, just changed designation, and it wasn't followed by due process. And the OMB, just went through. It's like golf course, here we go. So again, it's just my own knowledge to make me more informed. So I appreciate any information. Thanks, guys.
Good question. Good question.
Thanks.
So you're going to send that out to Ms. Livingston, Lindsay? Thank you.
Yeah, we will do
Councillor
that.
DeBreen. Go ahead, Barb.
Thank you. That was a great question, and it actually is great to see it in print. Would they, in an R5 zone, are they allowed a secondary suite?
No, not in our current bylaw. You would have to demonstrate. It would have to be, you could service it and so on and so forth. But at the present time, we haven't allowed them in that zone. We've allowed them in the A1 and A2 zones and in the R1 and R2 zones, I believe, but not in the R5.
Okay, single family dwelling. Thank you so much, Clinton. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Martin, did you have another question?
No, everything was explained. That's great. Thank you very much.
Good. So I'll ask again, final time, any final questions or discussion from council? Not hearing any. Thank you very much. That concludes that file. The next and final file is C24-21 Flato Dundalk Meadows, Concession 1, Southwest Toronto Sydenham Road, part lots 233 and 234, Geographic Township of Proton. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to shift a servicing corridor, which is currently zoned open space, to another location on the approved draft plan to rezone servicing walkway blocks to a residential zone, to provide flexibility in detailed design, and to recognize, rezone the portion of the enlarged pumping station to the open space zone. All other provisions of the bylaw shall apply. The effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment would be to change the zone on a portion of the subject lands from open space, environmental protection, and local commercial exception 465, C1-465 zones to the residential type 1 exception 378, R1 378-H, residential type 3 exception -379, R3 379H, and open space zones. Wow, that's like speaking in a different language, all that stuff. In any case, Madam Clerk, can I have confirmation that the proper notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act?
Yes, Chair Milne, proper notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act.
Excellent, thank you so much. And now I'll ask our planner, Clint Stredwick, to please make sense of this application. No, to go through the comments from the various agencies, please.
With your permission, Chair, I would actually invite the applicant's agent from MHPC, if you're agreeable, to provide a little presentation on what they are proposing, and then I'll get to the comments, and hopefully that will shed a lot of light on what's going on.
Absolutely. I've had lunch, so I'm most agreeable to hearing from Corey. Good, welcome, Corey. So the floor is yours, sir.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor, and thanks, Clinton. And yeah, I agree. That sounds like a lot of gobbledygook when it's read, but really, in the totality, it's pretty minor changes we're pursuing. And just unfortunately, the way zoning bylaws work, it gets a bit complicated when you write all this stuff out. So I have a brief presentation I'll take you through. Hopefully, it's clear what those changes will mean on the ground, and then happy to answer any questions members of council or members of the public might have. And just before I get into this, we do also have Dan Piggott from Crozier and Associates on the meeting as well. Some of these changes were prompted by the detailed design process that they're working through. So yeah, again, he'll be available to answer any engineering specific questions anyone might have at the end. So just with some background, the applications relate to what we call the Flato East subdivision. As we know, there was 3 separate subdivisions. We refer to them as Flato West, Flato East, and Flato North. In reality, they're all adjacent lands and will function as one master plan subdivision once it's all built out. So the original Flato East subdivision was originally approved back in November of 2016. We did pursue a minor red line revision back in 2019, which primarily addressed a technical lot grading matter. And since then, we did another minor red line revision previously back in early 2020. And as you know, the subdivisions have been registered and are being constructed in phases. And when we do the draft plan was originally done back in 2016. The engineering reports that are prepared at that time are a bit higher level, and it's to demonstrate the principle of the land use can function. And then once we come along to each individual phase, Dan and his team at Croziers have to do a much more detailed level of design to show exactly how all the grading, servicing, and whatnot will function. And sometimes when they get to that process and get into the weeds on the specific grading, we find the subdivision can function better if we shift a drainage or walkway block slightly. So that's what really prompted these changes, and I'll take you through that. So I think this is what largely prompted the red line revisions, and we have some graphics to show this, but it's really shifting some servicing walkway blocks, which leads to some lots all shifting over by a couple meters and the zoning changing accordingly. Additionally, in this next couple phases we're working towards registering, there is the pumping station block. And through the detailed design of that, we determined we actually needed slightly more land than originally was included. So you'll see that in a moment. Also, the part of the change at the far east end of the subdivision, close to Highway 10, is we do need to bring in a servicing corridor to allow municipal water to enter the site rather than come all the way down Highway 10. So that led to some minor shifting of lot lines. So this is, you can see here the Flato East subdivision, and we have 3 excerpts zoomed in to where these changes are taking place. And I do have these blown up a bit more, so I'll take you through them in a bit more detail in a moment. So with any of these zoning bylaw amendment applications and red line revision applications, we do have to go through all the applicable planning policy. As you know, the subdivision is approved, it's zoned, and it is designated in the official plans accordingly. So we do have to review all those documents, but it's my opinion that these minor changes all conform with those documents. I'll skip over this, as this is largely repetitive of what the Deputy Mayor read earlier. And this graphic here just identifies where exactly these minor changes are occurring across the site. So some of these walkway blocks are either being removed or shifted. So the first one I'll take you through, this is a shifting of a walkway / overland flow block. So on the west end here, beside lot 98, this is where it is currently approved. And through the detailed design, we found it would make more sense if this was located over here, adjacent to lot 90 and behind lots 87 through 89. So this changes to move that 3-meter walkway over to here, and all these lots shift over 3 meters accordingly. So the size of the lots does not change, it's just where this walkway and overland flow block is located. Similarly, this block was or is zoned open space today. So through the zoning bylaw amendment process, we're changing the zoning to reflect that shift. The second image down here shows the what's the block that's been dedicated for the pumping station. So it's minor, but these red lines down at the bottom is just the little bit more extra land we need. And what really prompted that is once we got into the detailed design, there's a need to accommodate a generator on site to ensure that the pumping station can function in the event of power loss. So that's really what this is to accommodate here. Moving to the far east end of the subdivision, so this is the portion adjacent to Highway 10, and eventually the future road connection here at the bottom into the subdivision and into Dundalk through the subdivision. So through this, there was the question of whether municipal water would be extended all the way down 10 to come in at the entrance. However, through the detailed design process and discussions with the township, Triton, and the MTO, it was determined that it was more favorable to not have to run down all the way down 10, but come in through this corner and in between the lots and access the subdivision that way. And that reduces the length of infrastructure required to be installed within Highway 10, which of course is MTO controlled. So this will be done by way of an easement through here, but it was required to be 6 meters wide. So that led us to just shifting some of these lot lines around so we could maintain the unit count and unit sizes and accommodate that water infrastructure through there. So in support of the applications and through discussions with county and township planning staff, our office authored a planning justification report. And similarly, Crozier's office authored an engineering brief that just addressed how these changes will function from a servicing and stormwater management perspective. So in summary, it's my opinion the proposed minor red line revisions and the associated zoning bylaw amendment to rezone portions of the lands is in the public interest and represents good planning for the following reasons. And as mentioned, it's consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms to the County of Grey's official plan, conforms to the Township of Southgate's official plan, and is in keeping with the approaches used in the township's zoning bylaw. So with that, thanks for listening, and both myself and Dan are happy to answer any questions you might have.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Corey. Just wondering now, okay, Clint, yeah, if you want to go through your report and any commenting agencies, please, that would be good now, I think.
Okay. So I won't have a report until I bring the bylaw to council, but I just wanted council to hear that so they understand it is a very technical thing that they're asking for here in terms of minor changes to the draft plan. And so I'll just go through the comments that we've received at this time, and then myself or obviously Corey or Dan can answer any questions. So the first comments we have then are from Bell Canada. And I'm just trying to, Bell Canada comments. We have reviewed the circulation regarding the above noted application, and then they asked that the following paragraphs are included as the conditions of approval. This would be in the red line revision approval, and they list off quite a number of things. That the owner acknowledges and agrees to convey any easements, that sort of thing, to Bell for the purposes of installing infrastructure. I won't read out all of those, but they are available there should you wish to read them. The Public Works comments, they indicate it's MTO jurisdiction for the main road coming in. It's in the Wellhead Protection Area D, applicable to dense non-aqueous phase liquids. And that's managed by education and outreach programs, so there's no further actions necessary. And then we have one comment from members of the public from April Ems, received August 19th. She's sending off this email, hopefully in all this new building of houses and bringing this new population from other areas, there's plans for a new park and even basketball courts, etc., to go in the Flato development areas, especially off Highway 10. I only ask this as the local park in town that used to be a safe and family-oriented place to go is that no longer. There are many different incidents of confrontations between groups there, and it seems to be more of a city feel park now than a family park, and not in a good way. It's also been made public on social media that it is not safe to be there after dark. When you look on social media of Dundalk, you will see the many different incidents that go on a daily basis now. This said, this is due to one incident that our family and about 10 others encountered there on August 17th, where we were there for a kid's baseball practice. While there were 2 kids who proceeded to cause problems and tried to intimidate their boys while playing baseball. They were new to town and said that they hated this town when they were confronted by some parents. And when confronted by the coaches, they got rude and disrespectful. This is not the only incident like this at the Ball Diamond. Long story short, there needs to be more areas available for all this new growth. There is not enough to do in this town to accommodate this rapidly growing population. The crime in the town has gone up astronomically and will only get worse. In fact, the day before that, a friend of ours has told us that while driving through the Flato development, she noticed a young girl running and upset. So she pulled up to ask her to see if she was okay, and she was terrified because a van had been following her around. As well, sorry, there are only 2 stories. These are only 2 stories out of many stories. This poses another problem with the fact that we don't have a constant police service in the town. I think this too needs to be addressed because, again, the crime is in the town is getting worse. It's not comforting to know that it may take the police an hour or longer to reach the town in an emergency. As a parent, she doesn't feel safe in this town anymore, as do many of the families. And I definitely do not feel my kids are safe in this town, and I'm certainly not the only one. So essentially, it comes down to needing more opportunities for development and for recreation for youth and police servicing. I want to let council know that I did forward this letter on to the CAO, who then brought it, either has brought it or is in the process of bringing it to the Police Services Board for further discussion to address these concerns, because some of these are quite clearly policing matters to be addressed. Whereas certainly, I don't know if we can address specifics about further recreation in this particular proposal because of the nature of it. However, it is a point that I'm sure the applicants would take note of for any future applications coming forward. And that's all of the comments I have here at this time. I thought there was 2 comments there. Was there not, Lindsay or Alicia, from Ms. Ems? Wasn't there a second letter?
I only received the one, but oh, Alicia?
She did provide a comment earlier on another zoning file, I believe.
Okay, it was a different one. Okay.
Clint, if I could, those 5, Councillor Frew, as a chair of our police service board, he did send those on to the detachment commander with Grey County OPP. So she is looking into that.
Okay.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, Clint, for that. So we've already done the applicant thing, unless there's anything else you wish to add, Corey or Dan?
Just quickly, and further to the comments received, part of it was just in relation to kind of parkland and how much, or I think the request was that there be more added somewhere within the Flato subdivision. So, as it builds out, there's certain phases that have been registered, and those ones to date didn't have any of the park blocks in them. Flato's in the process of developing some of the park open space trail blocks adjacent to the tributary in the Flato North subdivision. I know the township staff fairly recently in the last month or two we've been going back and forth with our landscape team and getting the approvals for that. And then currently we're working towards registering what we refer to as phases 7, 8, and 10, all within the Flato East subdivision. And we're kind of targeting end of this year approximately for that. And within those phases, there's at least 3 park blocks that will be included. And through the registration process, we'll be providing detailed landscape plans for what will be proposed there. And there'll be a process back and forth with township staff to, with details around playgrounds and, plantings, benches, that type of thing. So there is some more parkland coming online within the wider subdivision in the near future.
Very good. Thank you, Corey. All right. I'll ask now if there was anyone present who would like to make a submission in support of this application. Not hearing any. I'll ask if there's anyone present who'd like to make a submission in opposition to this application. Okay. Any final questions or discussion from council members? Okay. Erwin, I see Aurora. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. Good day, council. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. New resident to Dundalk, first time on council meeting, so thank you for having me here. I'm just gonna read from the letter that I've gotten. I'm gonna paraphrase for brevity, if that's okay.
Certainly, go ahead.
I actually have a question for, I'm assuming it's Corey, maybe even Clinton. So it says the purpose of the zoning amendment is to shift the servicing corridor, which is currently zoned open space, to rezone certain blocks to residential zones to provide flexibility in design, etc. The effect of the proposed amendment would be to change certain zoning, which is open space, environmental protection, and commercial exception, to residential type 1, residential type 3, and open space as well. And Corey, thank you for your presentation with the map that really helped make sense of, the gobbledygook, as you put it, the legalese. And the question I have is, you showed certain areas where it made sense, where you were gonna just move the walkway from one place to the other, so you had to change the open space. But I didn't see in any of your presentation where the environmental protection zoning was going to be changed. And honestly, my only concern as a resident, but more so as a human, is that we're not just getting rid of environmentally protected spaces for, something that you had mentioned when it came to convenience, when it comes to just plumbing and whatnot. So that's really all I'm asking is, are we getting rid of any environmentally protected lands?
Corey, perhaps you could address that, please.
Yeah, and thank you for your comment. And I'm just going to try to, I believe my screen is still being shared. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. Let me just jump back up to one of these slides. So this is the block I spoke of, the where the pumping station is located. And this gray line is where that lot line currently ends. And when we did this, we zoned this block open space because it would be for infrastructure. And the balance of the block around here is associated with the Foley drain and kind of the adjacent buffering. So all of this kind of extra land was zoned environmental protection, even though not all of it was within the required buffer or setback from the Foley drain. So it's this little nub here, this red, that's going from environmental protection to open space. And I believe this is, we don't have a dimension, I believe this is 4 meters wider just at this point, and obviously it gets narrower as it's following this angled lot line. And through the environmental work that was previously done, this kind of area here wasn't really required to be protected for environmental reasons. It's just the way the block laid out, that's how it was zoned. So it's really just to clean it up so it's consistent. We have open space where the pumping station will be, and the balance of this will remain zoned as environmental protection.
So then can I ask, that 8.2, is that meters? So you're talking about a block that's like 4 meters by 8 meters you're just extending?
Yeah, so this 8.2 is the depth. It's 4 across the front, and I don't have it in front of me what, this is basically 4, but angled, so it's probably slightly longer than 4 here.
And the purpose of the widening, if I can jump in and Stan Piggott from Crozier, the purpose of widening it was just to allow, there's a transformer that serves the power source to the pump station. And that could have gone on the park block, but it was a preference that it be located within the pump station block itself rather than on the town land, the park land, but it is all owned by the town. So it really isn't changing the use of what was happening there. It'll still be landscaped, but there will just be the transformer is sitting on the pump station block as opposed to the adjacent park block.
So if I'm understanding correctly, it's really only apologies for that. It's really only just a 32 square meters that you're adding, that you're changing from environmentally protected to open space?
Correct.
And just to add, this is the full subdivision plan, and what we're talking about here is this, where my cursor is, if you can see that, this little piece there in red.
Yeah, that's perfect. I live on the other side, so
okay,
where Russell Street is going to extend is, I think, where you're speaking about, because I live on the other side on Russell, and so I think I can actually see like all the trees and like that area where you will be building. And I'm, just as again, thank you for explaining that and showing the difference. Just as a concerned resident, just making sure that we are still maintaining that, integrity when it comes to the green space. So I thank council for allowing me to ask the question, and thank you for answering the question, Corey. And Dan, thank you.
Okay. By all means, thank you for attending, sir, and good question. All right. Any further questions from anyone online, I guess? Council, otherwise? No, not hearing any. All right, thank you very much. So that concludes this file, and it also concludes the public meeting. So I'll declare this meeting adjourned at 2:07. Thank you everyone for attending, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, you. Everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.